I always tell learners that they can be successful in so many ways and that their language learning does not have to look like anyone else's in order to be so. And I always have to take my own advice on that. I'm going to be very transparent and realistic in this most recent language learning update that I'm filming for you guys, because things have definitely not gone the way that I imagined them to in my pursuit of these plans that I put in these videos at the beginning of the year. I wanted to reach B1 in Russian and Portuguese, and I wanted to play around and dabble in Farsi. None of those three things have really come to light, and I'm here to share what has actually happened, how I'm adjusting my goals continuously to my own capacity and changing schedule this year. I feel like my past self would have been really disappointed to have set these goals and tell myself, these are the levels that you must hit, and then I don't, and then I'd feel so guilty and think that language learning wouldn't be for me, or that I just wouldn't be successful at all. And I feel the most at peace with myself than I really ever have. And even with these inconsistent 6 months, I am excited to still understand how I can keep on going. From the last update that I shared with you guys, I shared that I had picked up the Read to Speak series for Swedish and Dutch after seeing a lot of ads on Facebook about them, really getting back into Turkish listening more to Arabic. I was really doing well, I think back in February, being able to sit down every single day and listen to either a Turkish series or Arabic series on Netflix, just to, again, refresh my ear to the language, because I knew that I wanted to build up my Turkish and Arabic skills, get them back to the levels that I had previously last year. And then, of course, life got in the way, as it does for all of us, and I fell off that listening routine. I also talked about my Spanish level being down because I had passed the DELE C1 exam last year, and since then I haven't really used the language. And I was also facing a lot of mental roadblocks with speaking with other people, even after such a long break and after getting the certification, because I was also putting pressure on myself to be like, you have to perform just as you did on that test, because now you have it on paper, now you got to prove yourself. And not that anyone was telling me that openly, but that is the internal pressure I felt, which led me to, during my travels this year, not want to talk with anyone or even admit that I could speak Spanish. So it's been interesting to deal with that mental roadblock. But of course, my Spanish level has gone down with my Turkish and my Arabic. Barely done anything with Russian and Farsi and Portuguese too. But my current celebrations are that I, this month, have been listening a lot more to dubbed series and movies in Spanish, just to tune my ear again. The more that I do that, just whenever I can, I'm not putting a set time on it, the more that I feel a little bit more comfortable in the language. And it allows me to trust myself more in the process of being able to say, hey, yes, you can work up to your C1 level again that you used to have last year. Just take your time and enjoy the process getting there. We consider logistical wins like learning this many words, or the fact that we were able to stay consistent with a program that we're using. But mindset wins are just as fundamental to being able to get to those logistical wins, if you know what I mean. So hopefully I can build back to, one conversation lesson a week. That's one in itself, but my mindset to actually get myself to do that and book the lessons is a whole nother hurdle that I am learning to break down gradually. One thing that also in my pursuit of trying to keep language learning in my life somehow, even while not being able to stick to my goals that I had for this year, is also just listening more to Italian and, again, dubbing things in Italian, like TV series that I am into. I will have a retreat coming up in Italy this September, and so I do want to improve my Italian, refresh it from being so rusty. Listening for me, typically, even in my own language learning system, is the introductory sort of step that I need in order to then work on the language more actively. So I've been doing that again with Italian, and it's been really fun. I have discovered that by listening to more Italian, I've forgotten definitely different phrases that I used to really use fluidly when I spoke Italian more often. But that is just, a win in itself, just to be able to connect to a language that I have been able to speak fluently, just in a joyful way, and not put pressure on myself to perform like I do with Spanish. Recently, I've also been trying to form really short sentences in Turkish, just whenever I can, whenever I remember, whenever I feel like it. So I'll literally be maybe making a sandwich in the kitchen and then ask myself, hey, I wonder how you say this in Turkish. And then just having more active use of the language. I've also been doing some of the same stuff with Arabic, even though I definitely have been skipping lessons that I previously scheduled in Arabic for from February as well, when I was in a very productive phase again. Now, before I talk about how I'm readjusting my goals to how my inconsistency has been going these last few months, I want to talk about also the languages that I am, surprise alert, adding. Because I have been having such a privilege of being able to travel around Asia. And for those who have been following me for quite a while, I created this channel in order to talk more about learning a heritage language. It's such a different internal emotional experience from just learning a language that you're interested in but have no ties in, because I was adopted and I hadn't been to anywhere in Asia since I was pretty much a baby. And being able to experience what I was essentially adopted away from has been a really cathartic, difficult, and also rewarding emotional experience all at once. And it's also made me understand, hey, I would really like to get someday to a B2 in Mandarin. Not necessarily to connect to my roots, it's to connect to a part that I've unfortunately lost. You might have also known that probably 2 or 3 years ago, I was using exclusively Pimsleur to learn some Mandarin. And I have recently returned to that just because, yeah, I feel like this language, even though it's definitely not going to be one that in this or even next year I will probably concentrate on seriously because of languages I'll talk about in a second, it's definitely a language that is on my radar. I also have been dabbling too with Pimsleur in Japanese, also in part due to just meeting a lot of Japanese people during my travels here, but also just because I, as a part of my family, have a lot of contact with different Japanese international students, and they usually visit us during any sort of Thanksgiving or Christmas holidays. And so it would be really nice to not be the only one who doesn't understand some of what they're saying. Also, just because I coach different language learners who are learning Japanese as well as some Mandarin. And it would just be nice to understand more of their learning experience with Japanese specifically, that I can help them even more with. How am I adjusting my goals to my capacity, as well as the schedule that I expect coming up for the rest of the year? I am going to redo the advanced course of Wellesley College. If you have seen any of my Italian resources videos, you know I mentioned this college a lot because their course is literally the best self-paced course that I have ever found online that you can audit for free. That'll be just a really good refresher of more of the advanced grammar points, as well as just getting some reading and more advanced listening in there before my retreat to Italy. I'd like to do that course just like once a week, get in there and just refresh the language. Now, you know that I love using the same tool, essentially, if I can, for languages that I am dabbling in. And especially because all of these languages that I'm about to say, I really want to get pronunciation down, as well as get my ear more tuned to them. I am still going to just plan to use, I have my list here, the Pimsleur course for Mandarin, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, and Farsi. And I'm going to kind of do a rotation between them. So Japanese, of course, with it being an entirely new language, just 1 time per day. With that, Chinese is a little bit more flexible because I've already done pretty much all of Chinese Pimsleur before. So that's really whenever I feel like it. Farsi, whenever I feel like it. It's not as much on my radar as staying consistent with Japanese is. And then Portuguese, just reviewing some of the more advanced lessons. Starting next month, I do want to maybe not book 1 class per week, but at least take a Spanish conversation class for 60 minutes, 1 to 2 times per month for the rest of this year. Again, as I am deconstructing this emotional barrier that I've had with Spanish recently. I do want to build back that listening routine that I used to have in February, and alternating in between every day, in between a Turkish series and then an Arabic series. And also just being able to 1 to 2 times per week use the textbook that I used to use from last year in order to review the same topics, the same grammar points. I know that I reached the point where I want to be at before, and so I can easily do it again, and just seeing, what chapter I land on by the end of the year. And once I really see within this next month if I really can keep up with that textbook interaction with both of those languages, at least once per week, then I'll see about adding and layering on a conversation class. I would love to also just include some Russian listening. There are so many different Russian language YouTubers that I like to follow who are also teachers. I doubt that I'm actually going to reach B1 this year, just because my capacity is spread through all of these languages that I want to prioritize instead. French is still on hold. German is really just part of my lifestyle at this point. I've used it for talking with different people, traveling, and then I also sometimes teach it on the side. Again, it really doesn't matter if I don't get past A1 in any of the new languages that I mentioned in this video. I really just want to enjoy learning again. And I also love to host a series of different workshops throughout the year in order to help you learn languages just better and more joyfully. So make sure to sign up for that in the pinned comment below, and we'll see each other in another video soon.